Twin Peaks was a landmark show for televised drama, whose influence would go on to shape the modern TV landscape, showing the power of the medium before its golden age would have it match film blow for blow. If you're unfamiliar with the show, here's a quick rundown of what you'll need to know. Twin Peaks is set in a small titular town in the mountains of Washington, where the quirky townsfolk's normal day-to-day lives are rocked by the murder of high schooler Laura Palmer. Agent Dale Cooper is sent by the FBI to investigate the murder as a supernatural mystery slowly unravels around it. The show was an immediate hit its first season, with the question of who killed Laura Palmer becoming an international sensation, reaching the point where Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev allegedly asked then-President George H.W. Bush if he could get the answer for him. The second season of the show was less kind on the ratings, with series creator David Lynch, known for his avant-garde filmmaking, taking the show to weirder and weirder places. All while the network pressured him into revealing the murderer halfway through the season, going against his plan to never reveal it at all. With the original mystery solved and the show's direction heading somewhere your general mainstream audience didn't care much for, the ratings dwindled until the show's cancellation at the end of season 2, with a prequel movie, Fire Walk With Me, bombing in US theaters. The show would eventually get a third season on Showtime 25 years later, dubbed Twin Peaks: The Return. This time more David Lynch than ever before, but also to a completely changed TV landscape, one with a large enough audience that would watch all it can get. But all of this only shows one side of the Twin Peaks story. Across the Pacific Ocean though, Japan, never a country to shy away from media that might be considered a bit weird, had fallen in love with Twin Peaks. The show was an enormous hit, despite its limited broadcasting there, with even the US bomb Fire Walk With Me doing incredibly well in the box office, keeping the movie profitable internationally. Japan loved Twin Peaks so much that Georgia Coffee even filmed a series of commercials for the show's cast returning to play their characters, resulting in some of my favorite commercials I've ever seen.
Shelly, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's called Georgia Coffee. Comes in a can. Tastes as good and rich as any cup of coffee I've ever had.
It's true.
Are you Ken?
Yes?
A beautiful woman left this here for you.
Georgia ni makasero.
The ads are essentially a vague retelling of the events of the show, with two new Japanese characters and giving everyone in the town an insatiable obsession with Georgia coffee.
Georgia ni makasero.
Just as Twin Peaks sent ripples through American television, the lasting effects can also be seen in Japanese movies, anime, and video games. And that's what I want to talk a bit about today. One of the most iconic and frequently referenced locations in the show is the Red Room within the Black Lodge. The Black Lodge being of a sort of extra-dimensional realm and the source of all evil in the show. One of the first I can remember seeing was the Black Room in Soul Eater. Even before I'd ever seen Twin Peaks, the setting always really interested me. Keeping with the metaphysical origins, the room is a manifestation of character Soul Evans' soul. Yes, Soul Eater has never been a very subtle show. With the dark color scheme in reference to the black blood the room is tied to, the room is more than a cheeky reference, and plays a very important role in the story, not unlike the Velvet Room from Persona. The Velvet Room is yet another place between dimensions, inhabited by the mysterious Igor and his many attendants, and serves as a place for the player to sort and fuse their personas. The room does swap the iconic red for its rival color blue, but even that serves another reference to David Lynch in his movie Blue Velvet, a connection I am ashamed to say I never made until researching this video. Although the appearance of the room in Persona 1 and 2 most closely resembles the Black Lodge, it's in the main plot of Persona 4 we see more Twin Peaks influence. Persona 4 takes place in the rural town of Inaba, and has the protagonist Yu arrive right as a serial killer begins to strike. Together, him and his newly made group of oddball friends must solve the supernatural mystery. Some people also draw a lot of comparisons in the characters, but the only one I really see is Yukiko and Audrey, being the black-haired daughter of a wealthy family who owns a local hotel, and the best girl. There's plenty of anime that fall into this general category as well, and while one could get a little out of hand calling any murder mystery set in a small town a Twin Peaks reference, especially since Stephen King has been doing that since well before Twin Peaks. I wouldn't call it a stretch to say that Part 4 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond Isn't Breakable, takes some influences from Twin Peaks. We have the same figure from the big city coming to a small town wrapped in murder, mysteries, and the supernatural, along with more plot elements I won't spoil. The reason I more clearly see the influence here is JoJo's tendency to pull from Western culture, but again that could be more Stephen King. I've also heard Angelo's name as a reference to the composer of Twin Peaks, Angelo, name I will butcher, and while yes, the soundtrack in my opinion is one of the greatest ever made, and Angelo deserves recognition, it just feels like a bit of a stretch to me, but who knows. There are also much more on-the-nose tributes, such as PlayStation's Mizerno Falls and Deadly Premonition. I'm sure if you've played Deadly Premonition before, you've been waiting for me to talk about it. Being the love child of Twin Peaks and Silent Hill, another game you could argue was inspired by Twin Peaks, Deadly Premonition takes it to another level, not just referencing Twin Peaks, but essentially being what a Twin Peaks game would look like. I won't go into all the little details because it really is the bulk of the game, but if the idea piques your interest, I highly recommend you check it out. Last but not least, you have to talk about Hideo Kojima. Although I don't know of any direct references to Twin Peaks within the games, anyone familiar with both the work of Kojima and Lynch see the influences, especially with the latter half of Metal Gear Solid 2, and of course, David Bowie. I would go so far to say that Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 did for video game narratives what Twin Peaks did for TV drama, showing that you can go beyond what others are doing for the medium and produce something truly spectacular. Kojima even watched episodes 1 through 3 of The Return with his team at Kojima Productions to give them an idea of what they were trying to do with Death Stranding. From what I've seen from the game so far, it seems like they nailed it. You see, the influence of Twin Peaks to me is so much more than having a character sit in a red room or a murder mystery set in a small town. It's trying something bizarre and new in center stage, primetime TV where executives think it will fail. Trying something weird and not being afraid if someone calls it nonsense. No, Nier Automata never had a robot turn to the camera and say, "damn fine oil," but Twin Peaks still had an impact on the viability of a story like this being produced. There's so much more media out there that Twin Peaks paved the way for, even if they don't directly pay homage to it, and for that, I'm thankful.